YouTube, what's happening? I'm back for a review of 5 things I was up to lately. You know how the formula works. And today we're starting a new little trend here with my shirts. It's going to be a sports theme going forward for the next several videos of all the teams I played on in the past. This one is a softball team I played on with all my high school buddies and some other guys, I guess probably after everybody's done university and back being adults in our early to mid 20s or whatever. So yeah, this was a softball team, our first edition of the jerseys that we wore back in that time, and we actually had a really good team and made the finals a lot, but actually never won a championship. Story of my fucking life. Anyways, let's get into her. First thing up is a book, and it is called Predator: Stalking Shadows. Very interesting book, but also it's kind of disjointed and stuff happens, but you feel like it doesn't necessarily happen, you know? So it focuses on a guy in the Army named Scott Devlin, and he is assigned kind of a security detail in 1997 in Los Angeles, which is when, during the movie Predator 2 with Danny Glover, that was the Predator incursion in Los Angeles that caused all that ruckus. So he kind of comes in at the end of that, after the incident where the Predators blasted off afterwards, and is brought in to keep things hush-hush as possible. And as he's asked to kind of investigate the scene of the crime, he notices he gets jumped by a guy who is also there kind of hush-hush. And as Scott notices this weird hand on the ground that looks like it's oozing green blood, he's like, what the fuck? And then this guy gets the jump on him and kind of takes him out so he can escape. And the fellow who takes Scott Devlin out is Dutch, Arnie from the first Predator movie. So he's kind of working on his own to try and curb these Predator incursions after his first one in the jungle. He wants to make sure these things don't, cause the type of trouble on Earth that he knows they're capable of causing. So now it goes ahead many years at a time and eventually ends at the year 2013. So as it goes along, we see Scott, after this first mission where he's kind of jumped by Dutch and he's gotten the better of, he promises to become a better soldier on all aspects, and he keeps working himself up through the Army over the years. And so eventually he gets assigned to like a counter-terrorism unit with his best buddy Marcus, and all these other developments along the way. And as he gains a higher rank in the Army, he comes across Dutch a handful more times, and all is forgiven after that first incident in Los Angeles. And Scott is really his curiosity is really piqued by what Dutch and his unit are up to. So he wonders if it relates back to that strange hand from Los Angeles and whatnot. So eventually Dutch recognizes what a good operative Scott Devlin is, and eventually he brings him and Scott's team into the fold. I forget what they're called. They're called Dutch's unit is called something that starts with an H. I keep wanting to say the Hangover unit, but it's not that. It's something else. Havana, that's it. So then Devlin ends up going on these missions with Dutch to deal with these Predator incursions, and the first time they see a real live alien, they're like, what the fuck? And of course people die, but Scott does not. So in the end, it all leads up to something that this book is setting up, which I'll get to later in this video. In the end, Dutch's team is wiped out, all but Dutch, and he is only saved by using Predator kind of stuff they've stolen from the Predator. They've been studying the Predator species, and they use some of the things they've learned from that species to save Dutch. And also Scott's team is under fire, and his best friend Marcus is killed, and Scott is severely wounded, and they say he may never walk properly again. So in the end, years after Marcus's death, years after Scott has gotten better, or mostly better, we see him at the command of this unit that is legit going after these Predator aliens, and he's kind of the head honcho in charge of this, and operates out of its command unit. And that's kind of where the story leaves off. And like I said, we'll come back to it eventually in this video. Next up, finally, took me forever to get around to watching this, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. As this movie kicks off, the Guardians are hanging out on their new base on Nowhere, the skull-shaped planetoid thing, whatever it is. And Star-Lord is basically a drunken mess because he no longer has Gamora, and the whole team is kind of in disarray. But soon enough, they have to come together because this, what's his name? Adam Warlock, I think his name is. I forget what species he is, but he comes looking for Rocket and the Guardians in general because I think they stole some stuff from him, or his high priestess Aisha, I think her name is. They stole something and he wants to get it back, and he's after Rocket. In the process, Rocket is badly injured, and when the Guardians try to save him with this cool little device they have, they find its operation is blocked because Rocket has some sort of an inhibitor or something like that on his heart, so they can't get in there and fix him. So they have to go to set up a mission to go to OrgoCorp, I think is the corporation, which is the company that first started experimenting on Rocket and these other animals. And the High Evolutionary is the guy that is in charge of this corporation and is the one who started the whole program of operating on these animals. Now, while the Guardians are doing their thing, we see flashbacks with Rocket. So the first two movies, he always, I'm not a raccoon. What exactly happened to you, Rocket? And he would never talk about his past. So this is the movie where we see exactly what happened to Rocket. Throughout the movie, there's all these sporadic flashbacks of when he was just a little tiny raccoon, when he got plucked from the cage and he got injected with whatever, and they turned him into a walking, talking brainiac. And his relationship with the High Evolutionary, who was basically just using him. His relationship with the three other animals in his crate, which there was an otter, a rabbit, and a walrus. And they all got along like best friends. And eventually Rocket, the High Evolutionary, had a conversation with Rocket and basically discarded him. He's like, I've learned everything I can from you. Your batch is going to be terminated tonight, whatever like that. So Rocket tries to stage an escape to get out of there because he knows they're all doomed, and he gets out, but his three mates are killed in the process in the fighting, and he's just enraged. He hates the High Evolutionary, and this is what turns Rocket into the Rocket we know and love, right? Kind of grumpy, angry, prone to violence, kind of walking, talking raccoon. So in the meantime, the Guardians are trying to get to OrgoCorp, get some sort of device that will bypass this inhibitor chip and get it off of there or whatever. But they keep running into roadblocks, and they enlist the Ravagers, specifically Gamora, who is now working for them, to come along with them, which causes a bit of strife between her and Star-Lord because he's like, man, you were my woman. And she's like, no, I wasn't, and all this kind of stuff. So basically the rest of the movie is just this race to get the tech from OrgoCorp to save Rocket before he passes away from his injuries. And there's all sorts of twists and turns along the way, and it's just another great Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I love the fact that they included Rocket's backstory because it sounds like it was kind of hinted at for so long that you just like, how did Rocket become Rocket, right? And it was a neat story, and it was neat to see unfold on the screen. Now, the end, I don't want to spoil it, so if you don't want to hear what happens, close your ears. Earmuffs. In the end, like, you can see kind of the direction. Maybe there's not going to be another Guardians movie, or maybe they're only going to be used within other movies as cameos, because the team kind of splits apart at the end. Peter Quill goes back to Earth to meet his grandfather. Oh God, what's her name with the antennas? The funny girl. Mantis. She goes off to do something. I can't remember. And Quill and Gamora's obviously with the Ravagers. So Quill leaves Rocket as kind of the interim or maybe forever leader of the Guardians in the Galaxy. And they add a few new members. So it's Cosmo the dog is in this movie. Hilarious. And the guy from the Ravagers that was Yondu's like assistant guy, the guy that played Kirk on Gilmore Girls, he joins the team along with Cosmo and then a couple of others as well. So so there's a scene at the end or during the credits, I think, that kind of showcases this new looking Guardians of the Galaxy team. But Either way, fantastic movie. Typical Guardians. Good action, great comedy, and just effects and everything are, of course, out of this world, right? That was Guardians. Next up, this was a digital download for my Nintendo Switch, and it was downloaded because it was compared very closely to a game series that ranks among my top. It's got to be in the top 5 somewhere, most likely. I'm not sure exactly where. I'd have to sit down and really think about it. But it's compared to the Contra series. Need I say more? No. The game in question is called Blazing Chrome. Blazing Chrome was initially released in 2019, and it is a side-scrolling run-and-gun adventure just like the Contra games. The story behind it is that it takes place, typical old like NES-style game. It takes place in the year 21XX, right? And basically it's a post-apocalyptic wasteland. The world has been ruined by war, and a machine army or a robot army has arisen to kind of take over leadership of the world, and they are trying to eradicate all humans in their quest for, you know, a robot paradise or whatever. So you play as 2 playable characters that are going up against this robot overlord dictatorship sort of thing. Mavra is a girl who's like a resistance fighter, and then Doyle is actually a robot who's been reprogrammed to fight against the robots. So those are the 2 characters you can use. And overall in the game, there's 6 levels. And so it's really short, but it's also quite difficult at times. Some of the bosses can be a little hairy, but you shouldn't have any problems beating it if you just sit down, figure out patterns and all that kind of stuff. And it's very similar to Contra in that there's a bunch of different types of weapons you can get. Maybe not quite as many as in Contra. But same style, you shoot the things out of the air and they fall to the ground, you grab them and you get a new weapon sort of thing. And then they also have, similar to Contra, but a little different. In this one, like instead of in Contra, you can get, I think you can get things that, pickups that kill all the enemies on the screen or do whatever. Pickups they have in this game that aren't weapon related, well, one of them kind of is. These little robot drones you can get, one of them, it's kind of like a shield. It aids your defense, gives you an extra couple hits. One of them's attack, so it basically a laser circles around you and you get 2 shots. You know, you get extra firepower. And then there's one that increases your movement speed and your rate of fire sort of thing. So there's those little pickups as well. But yeah, so you just battle through this these 6 levels, face down all the bosses, and I think to end the game, you don't actually beat the game. You just take a big step for the resistance in starting a significant insurgence against the robots. So it's kind of like a happy ending, but also kind of grim at the same time. So I kind of hope that means they're setting up for a second Blazing Chrome. There may already be one, I don't know. But I guess tonight I'll go look, won't I? Next up, this came out just a week or 2 ago because I saw it on the GameStop newsletter and I said, oh, it was the day it was released, I think, or maybe the day after. I was like, I'm going to stop and pick that up on the way home. So it is Operation Wolf. What's it called? Operation Wolf Returns, First Mission. So if you're unfamiliar with Operation Wolf, it was originally an arcade game in like 1987. And it's one of those games where in the arcade, you grabbed a gun and you just have a targeting reticle on the screen and you're just shooting things, right? The original Operation Wolf was like a jungle warfare themed thing. Like I don't know if it was based on Vietnam or something like that or whatever, but that's kind of the vibe it gave me. And then eventually they ported it to the NES and I played the shit out of that game as a kid. Never got very far because it's hard, but it was so much fun. So this is basically just a reboot of that series. And of course, from I don't know when the port for NES was, but it was probably like 88, 89, something like that, to 2023. You can imagine there's quite a difference. It's a very short game, only 5, maybe 6 levels, 5 or 6. And the story behind it is that there's kind of like this criminal organization that specializes in running drugs and running guns and of course making money in all the most nefarious of ways. And they're also rumored to have been creating this super weapon that's capable of great damage. So you are tasked by your commander or whatever to go investigate. They've located some warehouses and some things. So your job is to go check things out, see what you can find, and chase down the guy in charge of this organization, who's, I think his name is Viper, General Viper or something like that, and bring this organization to heel, basically. So over these 5 missions, you just go to these different environments, and it's the same thing. You got a targeting reticle on the screen, you blast away. They worked in a lot of, a lot of vehicles in this game. There was a lot of jeeps and trucks and planes and shit and helicopters that you could shoot at, which they had in the original game, but I think they went a little heavier on this game, probably because of the advancement in graphics and all that kind of thing. But yeah, you just blast away through these 5-6 levels, whatever it is. There's different weapons you can get along the way. Some of them are situation specific, where you just get them automatically and then you're done with them after that little thing passes. And other weapons, you pick up ammo during the game and then you can switch between them, sort of thing. And then you also have grenades and stuff. And this is a game that can be played just like, I think the original Operation Wolf was 2-player on NES. It was in the arcade, but I'm not sure about the NES. But yeah, you can play with 1 or 2 players. So now it's a little different because only one player controls like when you duck in and out of cover and that sort of thing. So it's a little weird, but it's also really good. James didn't really seem to take that much of a liking to it, so I played through it on my own, as you may know if you watch the videos. But I loved it. I love those types of shooter games, and there's not that many of them anymore. There used to be a fair amount, but they don't seem to do those types of games anymore. So when I saw this, and then I saw that it was Operation Wolf, like I was like, yeah, it's a no-brainer. It's a lot of fun, but it is really short, so I paid like $40 for it. I would have preferred to wait and maybe pay $19.99 for it or less, but it's such an important game from my past that I was like, I don't care, I'm just getting it, sort of thing, right? So the one thing I was disappointed with is that I thought maybe they would have the OG Operation Wolf game as like an unlock when you beat the game or something like that, but I didn't find that anywhere. So I was kind of disappointed with that, because I would have loved to have played that again, because my NES died a number of months ago, finally, after so many years of action. So that's depressing. Gotta pour one out for the NES. Anyways, last thing up, another video game, PS5, Evil Dead. This was 2022 this game came out, I believe. And if you remember when I played Ghostbusters recently, Spirits Unleashed, it's a very similar type of game. It's basically an online multiplayer game. So you play as like in the Ghostbusters game, you and 3 other people online played as the 4 Ghostbusters, and then somebody else played as the ghost or whatever. This is the same kind of thing. You have 4 characters per level that can all be controlled by people, and then you fight against demons and the Deadites, and other people control the Deadites, or at least the main one or whatever. So yeah, you're tasked with collecting a certain amount of items, and then once you have these items and whatever, then you attack the main demons at the end and win the level. Or if you can't do it, the demon wins and whatever. So it's pretty cut and dry. It's just these repeated battles over and over again. And it does have a missions mode where, like, it's really neat. I think there was 8 missions, and each one is kind of the menu for it. Like, it looks like an old VHS tape, and it's kind of a themed Evil Dead thing. And so you're given basically a scenario that you have to take the character through and fulfill all these objectives without dying in order to beat the mission. I didn't beat one. I did not beat one mission. This game was hard, and I think it's because, and this is what irritates the fuck out of me these days, is it's an online specific game. The only way you can rank up your character, because it depends, it's one of those, just like Ghostbusters, you get XP, you rank up your character, they get more powerful, they get whatever. There's a skill tree where you can improve all your skills, but you only get credit when you play online. You can play against bots in this game. You can play by yourself just against the computer, but you don't get any credit for it. You don't get any XP. So that's what I liked about Ghostbusters, is that even if you're playing against bots, playing solo by your own, by your own by your lonesome, by your own self, whatever, you still got XP. You still leveled up your character. Whereas in this game, you can't do that. And I tried to play online a few times. I had very little success. The one time we actually had a match that didn't crash. Somebody didn't cancel it. I could find the match in the first place and wasn't waiting there forever before I stopped. Um, we got our asses handed to us, and it was basically useless anyway. So without being able to gain XP and rank up my characters, I think that's why I wasn't able to pull off any of the missions, right? I think you're supposed to play the game, level up your characters, and then you go do those kind of solo missions. Because I came close on a couple, I think, but most of them I just got destroyed so early. And I tried them all just because I wanted to get some sort of value out of this game. And no, I just got my ass handed to me every time. So now, the game itself is amazing. Oh, the graphics, the gameplay, I know Bruce Campbell did his voice as Ash, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the other characters were legit voices as well. And it spanned the whole Evil Dead series. Like there's Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. A lot of the environments and characters that were in those movies are in this game. So the game is executed really well. It's a great idea. The Evil Dead as a game, I never thought I'd see that. But the whole reliance on the online multiplayer nonsense just totally ruined it for me. Just made a game that I was looking so forward to playing and would have played for a long time, most likely. How many sessions did I play? And it was like, well, there's nothing left for me here, right? So unfortunately, that's the way it went. Now, this is what leads into when I was talking about my Predator book at the start of this video. So that story, that Predator story, Stalking Shadows, is actually a prequel story that sets up a Predator video game called Predator Hunting Grounds. Now, I've read up on Hunting Grounds. I really wanted to get it. I have not gotten it yet. It's made by the same company, Ilphonic, that made that Ghostbusters game. So I was fairly confident that maybe it's the exact kind of game as this. Online multiplayer, you're playing as like a squadron of Marines or whatever and taking down a Predator. So it's the same thing. 4 people online playing as the squad, 1 person playing as the Predator sort of thing. So I was very hesitant to get the game because I didn't know, is it going to be an Evil Dead where I'm going to play it for 5 times and then it's done because I can't fucking make any progress? Or being made by Ilphonic, the Ghostbusters company, is it going to be cool? Am I still going to be able to play with only bots and still rank up and still enjoy the game and make progress and play it to its fullest, right? I don't know. So I looked at some comments online, and you never know what you're going to get online. You never know if it's the truth or whatever. But the last time I checked, you couldn't play it as a solo kind of thing and get XP and get credit and stuff. It's strictly kind of like the Evil Dead, where everything's based on being able to play online with other people. So that's why I have held off on purchasing that game. Now, I have seen it on Amazon for like $27 or something, but I'm loath to spend even $27 on a game that I'm barely going to play, right? So if I ever see it in the bargain bin for like $9.99 or less, I'll definitely get it and give it a try and just see, because even if I only play it for 5 sessions, I'm sure it'd be a lot of fun, like Evil Dead, just to play. You imagine how a Predator is going to look on the PS5. Fucking shit. I'll have nightmares for weeks. But anyways, so that's where that initial book was going. It's actually a prequel to a video game. I like how they do that now. They did that for Alien Isolation. I read a book that led into that game, and that game was fucking nuts. Intense. I wish it wasn't on the PS3, because I really would have liked to given you guys gameplay footage for that game, because it was fucking mental. But anyways, before I start talking about a whole bunch of other shit and ramble on for like an hour or more, I'm cutting her off. Those were the 5 things I got up to this time, and you can guarantee I've already started working on the next 5. Peace!
Meow.